I'm Geralyn St. Joseph, and today at Coffee and Conversation, we're going to be discussing self-sabotage, what it is, and how do we confront our own methods of self-sabotage? How do we figure out what that is? What are we doing that is stopping us from achieving everything that we want to achieve, or at least doing the best that we possibly can? So the first one that is pretty obvious to most of us that you'll see is procrastination, when you procrastinate doing something. But the question is, why are you procrastinating? Not necessarily how are you procrastinating, but why are you doing that? You need to uncover the why, and when you do that, then you will be able to do something about it, to suss it out and do something about it. Are you procrastinating? And we'll make up all kinds of excuses. We'll say, well, we're tired, or we don't have all the education, or I'm not fully certified, or I need this, and this before I can do this. When a lot of times, if we look at it objectively, that's not really true. It's, fight for your limitations and they shall be yours. If you're going to argue and make excuses for yourself and say, well, these are the reasons why I can't do it, that is a form of self-sabotage in itself, because instead of trying to figure out ways to achieve your goals, what you're doing is figuring out ways not to achieve them. We do that oftentimes because we always need to be reaching for something. We always need a goal. We always need some place to be. We always need some place to go. And once we reach it, once we get there, then oftentimes, like, what do we do now? Now you have to have a harder goal or a bigger thing or something else. We're not very good at being in the now and appreciating what we have while we are also trying to do our best to do other things, reach other goals. But you don't have to constantly be on the road to do that. There's also a fear, so that's a fear of success. Then there's the fear of failure, which is almost as big as the fear of success, but not quite. When we're afraid of failure, what often happens is that when we say we're going to do something, it's always out there. It's always in potential. It can happen. If I start, I'm going to get there. I'm going to do this. But if you never start, then you can never fail because you've never done it. So the potential is always there. All these are fears, and these fears rise up so that we can look at them and figure out, okay, how do we work around this, or why is this here? We look at these fears and we have to consider, is there another direction I can take? Where is this fear coming from? Am I afraid because of that little voice in the back of my head who's telling me I'm not deserving? Part of self-sabotage also is when we are used to and comfortable with being mediocre. We're used to and comfortable with being right where we are. So to lift ourselves up and to go further, fear comes up because it's the unknown. It also comes up because maybe our peer group will no longer be our peer group, because now we've achieved something that maybe they don't have, and we're afraid that we're going to lose that foundation and that tribe. But what we don't understand is that as we move up, everyone kind of gets pulled up with us. So as we break those barriers, the people around us will be more, well, they're going to react one of two ways. Either they're going to be like, oh, you're different and I don't like what's happened since you became successful, blah, blah, blah. That's somebody who you need to set aside because they're not there for your greater good anyway. Or they're going to be like, hey, if you can do it, I can do it. How did you do that? Show me. Or they're going to take you, you're leading by example. So moving through self-sabotage in that way is very helpful. How do we know we're doing this to ourselves if it's not real obvious, like procrastination? And it's not real obvious, like we set up all these things in between us and where we can actually begin working on the things we need to work on. Well, you need to ask yourself, are your goals in alignment with what you're doing? So things like self-medicating, whether that be drugs, alcohol, some people do it through exercise, some people do it through eating, overeating. So self-medicating, are you doing that? Is that stopping you from achieving and from moving forward? And if you're self-medicating, why are you doing so? What is the pain that you're trying to avoid? What are you trying not to see or not to feel is even more prevalent? Because unless you allow yourself to feel and to acknowledge what's inside of you and what's happening around you and what's happened to you, it's very difficult then to move forward, because it's like you're trying to move forward even though your feet are stuck in cinder blocks and it's heavy and you're in mud and you're at Paris Studies parking lot and you just sunk all the way down and you can't get out. So you need to alleviate those things. Does that mean that you wouldn't be able to start tomorrow taking steps towards your goal? No, it doesn't. What it means is as you move towards your goal, you need to be very aware of how you're feeling, where is the resistance, where are you feeling it, and confronting it, acknowledging it, allowing it to talk to you and tell you and show you these are the places where things are unstable and where things need to be worked on or looked at, where your foundation is unsteady. So when we're talking about self-sabotage, the direction we want to go in and the direction we are going in presently are two different directions. And we need to acknowledge that. So if you want to own a house someday. So one of the things that is necessary for that is saving money, having good credit. But you're a shopaholic and you decide that every time you feel a little bit bad or it's overcast out, you need to shop, whether that's on Amazon or you're going out to the stores, but you're spending money that you don't have, using your credit that you can't really pay back very well. And then when it comes time to buy a house, you don't have any savings and your credit's bad. So that stops you from achieving that goal. Now, what was it that did that? Are you really afraid to own property? Are you afraid to be that responsible? To have all that paperwork there and have that huge debt so that you make smaller debts? What is the purpose of that? Why are you doing that to yourself? Why are you resisting what you need to do? Because you could see the steps that you need to do, you know full well, and yet you're choosing not to do it. And oftentimes we'll blame everything outside ourselves. The interest rates are too high. I'm not making enough money. Well, so-and-so got to go on that vacation and I work just as hard as they do, so I should be able to go on that vacation, and so on and so forth. Excuses are the nails that build houses of failure. Self-sabotage often starts with an excuse. When you get asked why haven't you achieved that? Why aren't you wealthy? Why aren't you as successful as you should be? First off, there's no such thing as should. That is a word you need to take out of your vocabulary. You have what is, what was, and what will be. Should is a fantasy, and it generally only holds you back. So that's something that you don't want to have in your vocabulary, because it's talking about something that is not reality. You want to stay in reality so that you know exactly where your feet are planted, exactly where you're starting from, because you can only start from here. You can only start from now. Another form of self-sabotage is constantly like reaching for something but never really getting out of your own way so you can get there. So it's like you're looking over at things. Like you're saying, say you're in college and you've got a debt of $100,000 coming out of college. And first thing I'm going to do is buy a house. Well, unless somebody's co-signing for you or you're buying your grandfather's house, he's selling it to you for $1, that is not something reasonable at that time. It's something you can place ahead, like out at a distance, and say, okay, I'm going to work towards it and this is how I'm going to do it. But setting yourself up for things that are not realistic. And when I say not realistic, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't shoot for the stars for some things. You can shoot for the stars, you can get there, but knowing that you're going to have to work for it, you need to work towards it. You need to allow yourself that upward momentum. And that's something that many of us forget. So when you're constantly looking at what's over there and pushing and pushing and pushing, instead of seeing where you're at, where are you starting from? That's a form of self-sabotage also, because you're always, as I said earlier, it's always in potential. It's always out there. It's always just past where you need to be. So part of what you need to do is start with realistic goals. And in order to reach a goal that is a distance away, you need to set yourself up with daily goals, weekly, monthly, things that are achievable so that you get that confidence that comes from achieving things. For instance, if you're in college or taking a course, you get all your homework done. That's a goal. You get that done and you do well, you know. Then your next goal is you're going to pass that next test. And then maybe you got a 70 on that test. And the next test, you want to do better. So you get an 80 or an 85 on the next test. And you know that you have to study differently. But it's building on top of itself. When we self-sabotage, instead of building so that we're stepping up on it, we're building and it's on top of us, holding us down. It holds us back. We pull ourselves back. We pull ourselves back by focusing on the wrong things. We focus on what we don't want instead of what we do want, or what we don't need versus what we do need. You don't need the latest phone. That's $1,200 now. You don't need that. That's not a need. You can get another phone that's a lot less expensive, that does a lot of the same things, but without all the bells and whistles that you don't really need. You don't need that status symbol. When we are trying to achieve greatness or trying to become who we're meant to be, like achieve our destiny or however you want to put it, we need to put aside other people's expectations of us. It's not about becoming a doctor because your mother wanted you to become a doctor. It's not about becoming a baker because your father wanted you to be a baker. It's about finding something that is inspiring to you to become. And even if that's not your day job, if your day job has to be something that's a little less inspiring for you, having it on the side or doing something else that really inspires you, that helps to hold you up. Because revving up your frequency is what will pull you forward and will draw to you people of like mind. So you don't want naysayers around you all the time. You don't want people who are constantly telling you like, oh, that's horrible. Oh, that happened to you. Let me tell you what happened to me. It was so bad. And that's all the kind of stories that you share. Then that's the vibration you're living in. That's where you're going to stay. Whereas if you're listening to and surrounding yourself with, as much as possible, people who are very positive, who are inspiring, who have achieved things that other people may have thought was unattainable, then you're going to push forward. You're going to push past that, because your vibration just from being around people like that heightens. It comes up a little bit. And then, yes, you have to work at it to stay there. But it's a lot easier to get there and to stay there when you're not surrounded by negativity and you're not feeding negativity. So even if you're around like if you have a job where you're constantly around people, like customer service, where people are constantly complaining, in order to keep your vibration up, the goal should be that maybe out of the 10 people you talk to that day, you get at least 2 people to walk away happy. So as we move forward and as we look at things and recognize that we create what's around us and that it's more about our attitudes create our altitudes, than it is about anything really going on around us, we will recognize when we begin to self-sabotage, because it's going to feel bad. It's not going to feel right. So as we move forward and we look at these things, we need to recognize that part of the problem may be where we are comfortable, because we are not, as a species, we're really not built to be happy all the time. That's really not part of it. It's about survival and it's about comfort. So if you're used to feeling depressed, you're used to feeling down, you're used to telling yourself these negative things, it's not something that you're going to just break out of. It's something that you have to continually confront and move past. How do you do that? Well, you see where you're doing things. You really need to listen to the voices in your head, because 90% of all the clatter and chatter that's going on in your head is not you. It's old memories. It's things from the past. It might be stuff that you heard on the radio. You could be picking up something from someone else. You need to quiet that, not by focusing on it in any way, but just notice it and let it go. Notice it and let it go. And if it continues to bug you, you say, no, this is the way it is. And you want your voice in your head and your spirit's voice to be louder than anything else that's coming in. So your guides and your higher self are not there to make you feel small. They are there to help you raise yourself up. They are there to help you to become more and do more. They are there to guide you through the channels. Like, you're going through the rapids, and your spiritual self, your higher self, your spirit guide, your guardian angel, whatever name you want to give it, is there. They're like your rudder in the raft, helping you to go through the rapids and stay upright. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be anything that's difficult. It doesn't mean that everything is going to be easy all the time. It doesn't mean that everything is rainbows and unicorns. What it means is that even when things are difficult, you stay above the fray. And even if you fall into the water a little bit, you get a little bit wet and it's cold and you're uncomfortable, you're not done. It means that you continue to move forward. So what are other ways that we self-sabotage that are even more subtle than that? One thing that happens is that we tend to have a lot of clutter around us. Where there is clutter, there is not clarity. So I should show you my desk right now is a mess. I really need to clean it up. Mine too. Yeah, it's like, that's it. That's definitely a thing. So you have to be careful of clutter. And the more clutter that is around you, the less clarity that you have. In feng shui, clutter creates dirt devils, so to speak. It is a place where negativity can be fostered and grow. So we want to make sure that our spaces are neat and organized, so that when we need something, we can find it, we can see it. We want the energy to flow around us as opposed to get stuck in all these places. Now, that's not to say there aren't going to be days or times where there's clutter around, but the thing is to always bring yourself back to that organization, because the clutter creates chaos energetically, and that chaos gets to us. It gets into our minds and the way we see things, and it stops us from seeing things very clearly. So it's something we just need to really be aware of and watch out for. Other forms of self-sabotage that are very subtle are things like, well, we said procrastination at first, talked about clutter. We self-sabotage also when we don't move in the direction that we know we need to move into. Like we convince ourselves like it's going to be too hard, or it's too much, or I'm too tired. You need to tell yourself the opposite of that. But oftentimes we're like, I'll do it tomorrow. We can start tomorrow. And when we continue to do that, it's a type of procrastination. And that's when we end up not really fulfilling our goals. We need to recognize when we're doing that so that we can push through it and move forward. Now, there's a difference between resistance and procrastination. What is the difference? The energy is the difference. So procrastination is like, you know it needs to be done, but you kind of pull yourself away from it. It's not an energetic coming off of what we need to do. It's an energetic coming from us pushing off what we need to do. Resistance is different. Resistance is when energies hit each other and they don't quite mesh. So when we find resistance to things, we need to look at that and figure out, why are we resisting this? Where is this coming from? Is it PTSD from something? Is it reminding us of something in the past? Is it because our solar plexus, our intuition, is telling us that there's something there to be afraid of or to be aware of? When we feel resistance, it's a whole body pushing. Like you can feel it. Your body tightens up when you go to do something. So we look forward and we figure out, why are we resisting this? Where is resistance coming from? We need to be aware of our bodies and really feel. And if you feel the resistance is in your solar plexus right here, if they get really tight and you feel like you're getting pulled backwards, that's a danger signal. Resistance needs to be acknowledged and it needs to be examined. If we feel it more like in our throats and upper chest, that's more emotion, or like a be quiet kind of a thing. Like our resistance is because of, that's more like fear, or you need to be quiet. You need to ascertain what's happening before you make any steps into it. That's different than just procrastination, which is like, I just don't really feel like doing that. Or I'll do it tomorrow, or that's not due for 2 weeks, so I'm going to put it off until I'm under pressure. I work best under pressure. That's one of the big tip-offs that you're self-sabotaging, is by not doing what you know you need to do when you need to do it, and putting yourself, creating that stress and that anxiety along with a task, instead of simply taking care of the task when you can or as soon as you can. So all these pieces of self-sabotage create a lot of disharmony in our lives. When there's self-sabotage, there's always a sense like that you could do better. It creates a kind of sadness in us. I related a lot to, I see a lot of people who suffer from depression or suffer from anxiety because they are not in alignment. So their lives, like they agree to do these things, is in their soul contract, and they're all the way back here, like still pushing away from it because they're afraid to be seen. I mean, and sometimes there's good reason to not to want to be seen, because you do get attacked sometimes. I mean, that's just the cold hard facts of America today, or the world today, because of the internet. With that being said, you need to decide whether your life is going to be what you set yourself up for, what you know it can be, where you feel your spirit going? Or are you going to allow yourself to atrophy and not move and not do positive things for yourself? We all have days where we feel weak or we feel down or we are in a lot of pain. That can't be the excuse to stop you from moving forward. You can rest for 24 hours, 48 hours, anything past that, then you start looking at, do I need to still rest? Do I need to be here? Or am I simply sabotaging myself and not moving forward in a way that will bring me success? And once you achieve those goals, it doesn't mean that that's, some people are afraid that once they achieve their goals, that's it. That's the end of life. They just, I know people who are afraid to retire because of that, because they're like, well, then I'm not useful anymore because I've retired. But that's not the truth. You can always have different goals. I mean, once you're retired, you can learn a new language. Maybe you're going to travel. Maybe you're going to write a book. It just means that you're moving into a different section of your life, and that's okay. Now, going back to being comfortable with mediocrity, as I said, we're not built to be happy all the time. It actually takes energy to do that, and you revving yourself up and maintaining a certain level of frequency. It takes energy to do that. And the thing is, like, where do you want your center to be? What do you want your undercurrent to be? Do you want it to be sadness? Do you want it to be the depths of despair? Do you want it to be anger? Do you want it to be frustration? Or would you rather it be joy? When your undercurrent is joy, that means that in any situation, you're going to look at the situation and try to figure out, how does it serve your greatest good? How does that serve you? How does that serve the people around you? And in order to achieve a level where you're comfortable being happy and being more positive, you do it in increments. You allow yourself to sit in those emotions. You allow your body to get used to what that feels like. And by doing so and doing it on a regular basis, you pull yourself up and out. That is not medical advice. Sometimes you need some help. And I'm not saying that no one needs help. What I'm saying is that something that we all share is the comfort of comfort. And we become comfortable with whatever it is that we've known for a long time. Human animals as a whole, we're not really into a whole lot of change, because change brings anxiety and fear if we don't know exactly what's going on or how this is going to help us. So in order to raise our vibration and get up there where we feel better and we look at things as positive instead of always negative, and not positive in the Pollyanna kind of a way, just looking at things with a higher altitude so that we can see maybe what the outcome is supposed to be, or how can we utilize this to help us move forward. Doesn't mean that everything feels good. So I want to make that abundantly clear. Just because you get rid of the self-sabotage doesn't mean that you never have any hardship or any setbacks. It just means that you've gotten out of your own way so that you can achieve things that you want to achieve. So what I would like to do now is to slow down a little bit and just do a quick little maybe visualization so we can see where we're at with this and maybe move past it a little bit. Is that okay with you guys? I know some of you are not going to be able to really pay attention, but I am recording this, so you will get a copy of it. So I'm going to pull this out, and I'm going to record it on here also with just the meditation, so that we have just that pulled out and separate as an audio. Okay, everybody ready? What we're going to do is we're going to breathe in as deeply as we can. We're going to hold it for a second, and then we're going to breathe out slowly. We're going to do that 2 or 3 times, and then breathe regular. Try to keep deep breaths as opposed to, hyperventilating. And the reason why we breathe that way is so that our body is triggered to calm itself down, to be calm, and our muscles will relax. But not necessarily like go to sleep. Okay. Okay. Everybody ready? Okay. Take a deep breath. And release slowly. And again. And release. And one more time. And relax. We feel the sunlight hot on the top of our heads. We feel the sunlight kiss our skin. The wind caress us. We feel earth beneath us as we walk barefoot through a forest. It's cool and warm. As we step forward, we see light in front of us. It is a clearing. We step out into the sunlight, bright and warm, as it hugs us hello and fills us with its beautiful, amazing golden white energy. Soft wind caresses our arms, plays with our hair. We feel the earth beneath our feet bounce, and the cool grass. And as we walk, we see at the edge of this field a huge tree. It's enormous. And as we walk closer and closer, it looks bigger and bigger. And we see that its trunk, its huge trunk, is multicolored. We see yellow and red and brown and green, cream. And as we move forward, we begin to walk around the trunk, stepping over its huge roots that reach out in every direction. And we see an opening. And we walk into that opening. As the sun leaves us, we feel the coolness in front of us, and over us, and surrounding us. And it takes our eyes a moment to adjust to the darkness. We're on a landing. There's a stairwell going up as far as the eye can see, and one going down. And at the bottom of the stairwell, we see flickering light, like firelight or candlelight. And we step down, going deeper into the tree, towards its roots, towards our roots. 1, 2, 3. We step further down. 4, 5, 6. It's at once cooler and warmer. 7, 8, 9. And we step down off the last step, 10, onto solid ground. We see before us a huge hearth with a fire going. Its light illuminates the room, throwing both light and warmth like the sun. We hear the crackle of the flames as they lick up into the chimney. And before the hearth is a table. Sitting at this table is you. You stand there and you look and you see yourself. There are actually 2 of you there. One looks ill and tired. The other looks vibrant, like an angel, full of life and energy. They are at either side of the table. You walk to the table and you sit between them. You turn to your left till the image of you that looks ragged, tired and frustrated, so sad, so beaten up. And you say hello, and they say hello back. And you turn to your right and you see the image of you sparkling and shining like the sun, your light competing with that of the fireplace, illuminating the room. Happy brilliance, wholeness, love and light embodied. And you say hello. And that image of you says aloha. And you say to the 2 of them, can you explain this to me? What's happening here? And your golden self says, I am you fully realized. And to your left, your other self says, I am you. I am the thoughts in your head and your stumbling stones, your excuses, your nuisances, and your fears embodied. And then they both speak at the same time and say, and together, you are us. I see. What do I need to do to not be frustrated? What do I need to do to overcome the voices in my head? What do I need to do to become everything I am meant to be? And you turn to your left and you look at yourself. And you start talking. I was created when I was not good enough for my parent. I was created when I had that first bad relationship. I was created when and you speak to yourself and you hear and acknowledge the trauma and you validate the emotion. You allow yourself the space to cry and to rage. And your golden self reaches out their arms and take the hands of this defeated self. And as your defeated self takes the hands of your golden self, the golden self allows some of their energy to be taken, to be shared, multiplied. And as you put your hands on their hands, you feel the energy also move through you. You feel the energy find those pieces that are wounded. You feel the energy fill up those holes and those dark spots, lovingly and completely. And slowly, as this process occurs, your beleaguered self begins to fade, and your golden self becomes one with you. This is who you are meant to be. This is where we are meant to go. And as you integrate and balance and heal, you feel yourself start to glow with golden white light. You feel it like a warm oil coursing through you, caressing you, removing all negativity, healing wounds. And as you breathe in deeply, the smell of cedar and sandalwood you feel yourself at peace and whole. You have the information and the acknowledgement from your battered self. You have the love and inspiration of your golden self. You are shadow and light. Hold on to that feeling, that sense of completeness. You are aware of a door at the end of the room, and it opens, and you see a loved one or a guide or a guardian, and they walk over to you. They stand behind you. They put their arms on your shoulders and whisper in your ear, "You are loved. You are loving. You are lovable." They kiss your cheek and give you a hug. One last squeeze. They stand up. They squeeze your shoulders. And as they walk away, you can still feel their hands resting upon you warmly and confidently. And you hear the door open and close. And you open your eyes. You feel good. You see that your skin shines a bit. The golden you is activated. You see the fire is dying down in the hearth. And you walk towards the steps to go back to the pasture. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. You can feel the darkness of the empty room following you up the steps like a cool companion, supportive and loving. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the splash of sunshine on your face feels good. As you step out of the tree, you blink because the brightness of the sun, it takes your eyes a moment to adjust. And you lift your arms up to the sun and you say, "Thank you, Spirit, for all that you've given me, all that you've shown me, and for all the support that is continually there, for the loving guidance. Thank you." Then you walk back towards the forest, back towards the shelter and the shade of the trees, back into your body. You feel your hands and your feet, and you take a deep breath and let it out slowly. Relax. When you're ready, open your eyes, move around, and make sure you drink a lot of water. Thank you. Okay, with that, I'm going to stop the recording so that we can have a discussion. I hope you enjoyed that. If you'd like to learn more about Coffee and Conversation, you can join us on meetup.com and just look under Coffee and Conversation, or you can look under my name, Geralyn St. Joseph. I have other groups as well, and you can also check out my website at geralynstjoseph.com. Thanks again for a wonderful evening. Have a great night.